All packed up here and ready to leave the Faroe Islands. It's been amazing, it's been crazy, it's been an adventure. And as I mentioned yesterday, at the end of this video, I want to talk quickly about the Faroe Islands. A lot of people have been asking me, are the Faroe Islands the new Iceland? Or are they gonna become Iceland? And I have some thoughts on that. So I wanna talk about that at the end of the video, but first, time to head to the airport, heading to Copenhagen, then onward to London.
You told me you believe in something and you said you're done pretending that fate is patient. Go run away.
So we were at the airport for like an hour and a half, and then the SAS flight was circling above and didn't land because of fog. It's really foggy out there. So sadly, my flight got canceled again, and I just went and paid for a flight with Atlantic Airways. Atlantic Airways has a technology that SAS doesn't that allows them to land in the fog. So if I can recommend one thing, if you're coming to the Faroe Islands, don't book SAS. Book Atlantic Airways, because then you'll definitely land. So plane's here, and yeah, I paid like $350 to get on it, but I should get that compensated from my travel insurance. And on top of it, in Europe, there's all these policies. If you have your flight canceled or delayed, you can get compensated. So the last canceled flight, I got 200 euros. This canceled flight, I'll get another 200 euros. And in the end, I'm making profit off these flights. So yeah, should be jumping on this plane now and heading to Copenhagen.
Get it out of your system. Come back when you're older.
Ooh, a proper Faroese send-off with this fog.
Victim. And come back when you're older. Go catch the storm within your broken bones and be wild, 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 wild.
Made it to Copenhagen despite the challenges, and I have like 3 hours here. So I'm gonna make the most of that time, go find the lounge, get some work done, and then be on my way to London, which is only like a 2-hour flight. And then once I get there, I promise we'll talk about the Faroe Islands a little bit.
Summer's end, and you feel that this is your beginning. Will colors fade?
I made it to London. I got some ranting to do. Yeah, but I think I'll do that when I get to the hotel. So I'm not really sure where I'm staying tonight, but it'll be somewhere. I guarantee you that. So let's go pick up a rental car, and yeah, then I'll do some ranting and some chatting about Iceland and Faroe Islands as well. Okay, so I'm in my hotel. It's now tomorrow. I'm gonna set you on this chair, like so, and I'm gonna sit on this chair, like so. In fact, maybe I'll get closer to y'all and get the camera up. I am going to rant, but I'm going to save the rant for last, because I've been promising you guys that little quick discussion on whether the Faroe Islands is the new Iceland. And I think it's an interesting discussion, and it's something that I expected to get questions about, because even me, I was thinking, are the Faroe Islands turning into the new Iceland? Are there going to be as many photographers in the Faroe Islands as there are in Iceland? Are there going to be as many tourists in the Faroe Islands as there are in Iceland? And the answer is no. It's quite simple. The answer is no, the Faroe Islands are never going to be Iceland. They're never gonna turn into Iceland. They're never gonna be as busy as Iceland. They're never gonna be as packed with people as Iceland. And there's a number of reasons why. The first reason is because it's small. I don't think people understand how small the Faroe Islands are. In fact, let me bring you over to the computer, which is processing the vlog from yesterday. As I sit on the floor to do this, I'm gonna bring you over to the computer, to Google Maps, just show you how small the Faroe Islands are. So we're gonna go into Google Maps and we're gonna type in the Faroe Islands, and you're gonna see all the spots that I marked for landscape photography. This is the Faroe Islands. Now, I'm gonna scroll out a little bit, like so. These are the Faroe Islands. These are the Shetland Islands, which you probably never heard of. They're also small. It's also a small cluster of islands north of Scotland in the Atlantic. Let me bring you over to Iceland, which is up here. Look at the difference between Iceland and the Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands are tiny. They're just tiny. In fact, the Faroe Islands in total are about the same size as just this peninsula, as just this one peninsula. In fact, this peninsula, I'm sure, is bigger than all of the Faroe Islands in landmass. The Faroe Islands are tiny. They're really, really, really small. In fact, let's compare them over to another popular photography destination. You have the Faroe Islands here. This island down here, that's the Isle of Skye. So instead of comparing the Faroe Islands to Iceland, maybe comparing the Faroe Islands to the Isle of Skye is a better comparison because they're about the same size. And in terms of photography locations and photography options, there's way more in the Faroe Islands than a comparative sized area, which is the Isle of Skye. And the Isle of Skye is fantastic, as are the Faroe Islands. You can't compare Iceland to the Faroe Islands just because they're both northern countries, northern destinations. They're totally, totally different. I'm gonna go back to the chair because kneeling is uncomfortable. The Faroe Islands are lacking some of the things that Iceland has. First of all, Iceland's a stopover country. Iceland worked really hard to make itself a country that tourists could stop in and have a free layover to spend 5 or 6 days. In fact, a lot of Iceland's growth can be attributed to the fact that the airlines and the government put in an initiative to make it a stop so that when people were traveling from New York or Chicago or LA onward to Europe, they would stop there and they could have a free layover. And that doesn't exist in the Faroe Islands. You can't stop there as a layover. In fact, the Faroe Islands are reachable by very, very few destinations. So accessibility is a big issue for the Faroe Islands. On top of that, it's not as dramatic as Iceland, not even close. Yes, it's beautiful, don't get me wrong. If you love the Faroe Islands, if you're from the Faroe Islands, it's incredible. It is unbelievable. And as a landscape photographer, it's a landscape photographer's playground that you could shoot for months and not get bored with. But it's not on the same level as Iceland for the reason that it's just missing a lot of things that Iceland has, and a lot of that has to do with the volcanic background of Iceland. Iceland has these massive volcanoes on it, and then the whole ground is geothermal. So you have things like black sand beaches that are volcanic, and then there's things like hot springs and stuff like that. You also have glaciers in Iceland. There's a number of just massive glaciers and massive mountains. So when you look at the size of the Faroe Islands, the size of the cliffs, the size of the mountains, the size of the hills, in the Faroe Islands, they're way smaller than in Iceland. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that Iceland is a volcanic island. The other thing is, in the Faroe Islands, there's not a lot to do if you're not a hiker or an outdoors person. If you go to Iceland, you can do and see a lot of things, even if you don't like hiking. If you get a rainy day, there's still a lot of things you can do in Iceland, like visiting the hot springs, like going to check out some of the museums in Reykjavik. In the Faroe Islands, almost all of the activities there are to do are hiking and nature-based. So on a really heavy rain day, there's just not a lot to do. There's not really spas to go to. There's not hot springs to go to. There's a couple galleries, but not really a whole lot of museums to go check out. There are some towns you can visit in the rain, but the Faroe Islands in the rain isn't the same as Iceland in the rain, if that makes sense. There's just not the same tourism infrastructure in the Faroe Islands. I mentioned that when I was searching for hotels and accommodation for our group, it was really, really hard to find. And the ones I did find were quite expensive. There's just a limited amount of infrastructure for tourists, which makes it kind of hard on tourists that are visiting the Faroe Islands. For example, restaurants were really hard to find, so much so that we were going to the same restaurant 2 or 3 times, that we were driving almost an hour to get to a restaurant. The infrastructure right now for tourism in the Faroe Islands is very limited. Or I don't think it's really possible to go and join tours. I think you really need to self-drive. And that makes the Faroe Islands special. It doesn't make it a negative. I think that it makes it still this raw destination. So I don't think you need to see that as a negative, per se. I think that the Faroe Islands aren't Iceland. They're never gonna be Iceland. And that's a good thing. You don't want to be Iceland, you want to be your own thing. Finally, the Faroe Islands are very different from a photography perspective than Iceland. For example, we spent 9 days on the Faroe Islands, and yeah, we didn't get to Kalsoy Island, we didn't get to a couple other smaller islands, we didn't get to the Puffin Island because of weather. But had the weather been good, I think we could have covered the entire Faroe Islands in just 9 days. 9 days in Iceland, you're just barely scratching the surface as a photographer. That being said, in the Faroe Islands, the entire 10 days that we were there, I think we saw maybe 10, maybe 12 pairs of tripods, or 12 sets of tripods, 12 photographers with tripods out. When we went to Kirkjufellsfoss in Iceland, there was maybe 100 photographers in that one spot. So they're not even comparable. I thought that when we go to the Faroe Islands, we'd see photographers at every single location, and that just wasn't the case. Even the really, really iconic waterfall we went to twice, we only saw, I think, 3 tripods in total, both days. So yeah, it's still a great place for photography because you don't have a ton of tripods swamping over. You don't have people fighting for compositions, and there's just countless numbers of locations to shoot. So stop trying to compare the Faroe Islands and Iceland. That's what I have to say. They're different. Visit the Faroe Islands. They're incredible. And visit Iceland too, because even with all the photographers there, it's still incredible. Now, rant time. And I'm gonna stand up for the rant because because I feel like it's more impactful if I'm standing up. Rant time. So, SAS flies to the Faroe Islands, but they're not equipped with a certain type of navigation technology that I can't remember the name of right now. And so they can't land in fog, whereas Atlantic Airways can land in fog. But SAS flies there every day, and they don't have that technology, so the flights must get canceled like crazy. And then on top of that, at the airport in the Faroe Islands, there was no support. There was no staff. There's no SAS desk. So nobody to help anybody when the flight got canceled. I didn't get notifications on my app. I didn't know what to do. I called customer service. And I said, what do I do? My flight's canceled. And they said, oh, you're going to have to talk to the representative at the airport. I said, there's no representative here. There's no desk. And they said, oh, okay, well, we'll rebook you on tomorrow's flight. And I said, okay, then what do I need to do about tonight? How do I pay for my hotel? How do I pay for my taxi to get to the hotel? How do I pay for my food? Because you're supposed to cover that according to the law. And they said to me, talk to the representatives at the airport. But there was no representatives at the airport. If you're an airline and you're flying to a destination that has flights canceled so often, like the Faroe Islands, how do you not have representation at the airport? That's problem number 1 of about 100 on the day. Eventually, customer service told me to book the Atlantic Airways flight. They would reimburse it and fly to Copenhagen, get on my next flight to London. So I did that. I paid the $400 to get on that other flight and headed to Copenhagen. When I went to board my flight in Copenhagen, they told me that my flight was canceled. So they wouldn't let me board the plane. And I didn't vlog any of this because I was worried that I was gonna sound really angry and spoiled on the camera. So I wanted to let it sit for a little bit. And after talking to the SAS staff, who, by the way, if I've been giving SAS a really, really hard time because of their policies and because of their airplanes and stuff like that, their staff was amazing and really nice and really helpful. So I think that's also really important to mention, along with the negatives. Anyways, they canceled my flight and this lady really, really, really helped me. And I eventually got onto the flight. And I thought that my rant at the end of this video was gonna be about SAS. But it's not. I think it's silly what happened with the SAS stuff, but what really was silly, at the very end of the day, I got to Heathrow Airport. Our flight touched down at 9 p.m. I didn't leave the airport until 1 a.m. last night. 1 a.m. I got off the airplane, I walked to immigration, and the line was big. It's always big at Heathrow, and it always takes so long to get through that immigration at Heathrow. I know British people love queuing, but that's next level. We queued for over 80 minutes. Some of the people I talked to that got in after me, they queued for 2 hours at Heathrow Airport just to get through immigration. That's too long. That's way too long. The lines to get into a country should not be that long, especially not at an international airport that's taking flights that are 10 hours. I came off a 2-hour flight, so waiting 2 hours in a line is ridiculous, but it's not that bad. People were coming off of 12-hour flights, 14-hour flights, 8-hour flights, 16-hour flights. They were coming off of really long hauls and then having to stand in line for nearly 2 hours. That's not only bad, that's not acceptable. People are exhausted coming off of these flights, and then they're made to stand in line for an hour and a half. And if the lines are an hour and a half, how are you not providing water for people? It was unbelievable. I looked around and I thought there was going to be people collapsing in line because it's exhausting. You're coming off a really long flight and then you have to wait in line for an hour and a half. So I got out of immigration and the airport and everything at midnight. And the story doesn't end there because it took me another full hour to get my rental car. So I landed at 9 o'clock. I finally got out of the airport at 1. This is arrival. You know how you're supposed to arrive at an airport 3 hours before or 2 hours before? I took longer to get out of the airport than it usually takes to get in, which is just unacceptable. And every airport I land in London is like that. Stansted, Gatwick, Heathrow, the immigration lines are unacceptable. And so I hope the airports do something about that, but I can't imagine them ever doing something about it. To be honest, I think the shortest I've ever waited in an immigration line in London is like 30 minutes, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It's not... If you're a country, you want to give your country the best image upon arrival, I think, and that's just not. So, yeah, it was a long day of travel yesterday. Yesterday's travel day was one of those days that almost made me feel like I want to settle down on a nice farm in the Faroe Islands with a whole herd of sheep and border collies and just forget it all, because it was a long day. But after about 5 hours sleep here at the hotel, on my way to Cornwall, I'm feeling better. Feeling a little bit less stressed out about things, and on my way now to Cornwall to meet up with Jody and spend a couple days on Cornwall with her and her family, and then I've got like 10 days or something like that here in England. So hopefully no more queuing in England, but I'm sure it'll probably happen. And I gotta get on the road, so I'm gonna take the rest of the day off today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.